Good morning, everyone. My name is Irena Bednarik, and I'm the Vice President of International Government Relations, looking after EMEA, APJ, and Latin America at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. On behalf of Forum Europe and HPE, I would like to warmly welcome all of you to the 8th edition of our Public Sector Transformation Conference. For those of you that have followed us in the previous editions, you will know by now that once a year we love to convene an event where senior international subject matter experts help us unpack a specific aspect of the digital transformation of governments in the European Union. So this year we have chosen to look and dig quite deeply in the subject of sovereign AI in public sector. And with the help of our distinguished panelists, we will try to analyze and assess how can we in the European Union build an ecosystem for AI that is sovereign, resilient, and trustworthy. As Commissioner Breton said it excellently last week at the Spanish Presidency AI conference, AI really is about three things. It is about compute, it is about data, and it is about algorithms. Today, we will actually unpack the first two dimensions of this equation. We will look at data and we will look at compute. AI has been propelled at the top of pretty much everybody's agenda over the last months and quarters. Public sector, private sector, big companies, small companies, pretty much everyone is talking about AI and trying to understand how we could actually reap the benefits of the AI revolution. The public discourse on AI, it's currently gravitating on pretty consistent themes that are typically ethics, what are the risks, how can we mitigate the risks, and what is the governance model at national and international level that we should collectively build. However, out of these global conversations, a critical component of the AI ecosystems is very often sidelined. And this is what we want to look at pretty closely today. Without compute capacity, there is actually no AI. And compute capacity is not only relevant because it is the sine qua non component to run any AI model, but it's also very critical if we want, as a European society, to avoid the next digital divide, which will be, or could be, hopefully we'll avoid it, but could be the divide between those that will have access to compute capacity powering AI and those that won't. And this will basically create a divide between the GPU rich and the GPU poor. So to discuss all of these fascinating topics today, we will organize the 3 hours that we have today together in our usual 3 parts. So we will start with 2 keynote speeches. And the idea here is really to gather a comprehensive overview of what is going on in the AI market in the European Union. Panel 1 will look at the data dimension, and we will look at sovereign AI in public sector and what is actually the value of interconnected data spaces for the purposes of AI. And we will try to understand whether we actually need interconnected data spaces to have larger data sets to nourish the AI models. In the second panel, which will be dedicated to compute capacity and the access to it, so as a key component to democratization of access, We will fundamentally look at four themes. We will look indeed at what is the status of compute capacity in the European Union. Do we have enough capacity, or what are the projects and plans to increase the available compute capacity? Secondly, we will look at the various infrastructure models that can underpin AI models, namely on-premise high-performance computing and cloud. Thirdly, we'll look at the sovereignty dimensions in the AI discourse, and specifically at both potential infrastructure models. And last but not least, we will look at the role that the Euro-HPC-JU, the joint undertaking, has in powering AI, and we will look quite deeply here as well, and what are the current rules governing the access to this existing capacity, and whether there are any changes that need to be adopted. So, as you can see, a lot to cover today. So, with no further ado, I would love to introduce to the stage our first keynote speaker. And we are delighted, and actually I shall say really honored, to have with us today Europe's AI superstar. So Jonas Androulis is the CEO and founder of Aleph Alpha, a very successful multilingual AI model built and made in Europe. Jonas, thank you so much for being with us today. A real pleasure. And I would like to give you the floor to walk us through your experience, your very successful endeavor, and if you could share your personal experience in the opportunities you see in Europe and the challenges. The floor is all yours. Thank you, Jonas.
Thanks, Irina, and thank you for the opportunity to share my perspective. So in AI, and I think nobody really has to be convinced of this anymore, we are in the middle of an industrial revolution that can really redefine how humans and machines work together and can rebuild all our office work. And this is absolutely dearly necessary because we have a worker shortage pretty much everywhere, and the experts that we have are completely overloaded with work. We're currently working on improving processes like check processes and confirmation processes that sometimes takes years and span hundreds of documents. So with this technology that this industrial revolution will bring, we have the opportunity to build a new generation of efficiency and quality and redefine what we mean when we say intelligent systems and intelligent machines. This will, of course, impact all industries. We're currently working in the financial sector, in security, in manufacturing, so really everywhere. There's tons of knowledge work. There's one kind of study that says about 60% of the GDP that we have in the Western world is knowledge work. And there's another study saying that even with today's generation of technology, so if there was no improvement and we would just leverage what AI can do today, we could reduce the amount of work in terms of time from every single person, every single employee, every single knowledge worker by about 60 or 70%. And this is like a massive potential. So what does that mean, and what is the strategy here for world's best enterprises and governments? And this kind of ties into sovereignty. I believe it's absolutely crucial to develop your own strengths. You need to think about how can I run, how can I build, change, how can I capture value out of this technology. And this is not only limited to today, but also in 5 years. So how can I position myself now that I'll be in a strong position in 5 years and can take responsibility for the outcomes? This, of course, starts with data. Data is incredibly valuable and necessary. Even with AI becoming more and more powerful, a general purpose AI that is like a chatbot or something like that, that is trained on the whole internet, is wholly insufficient to solve the complex problems that we're facing, that our experts are facing every day. So building that data, securing it, curating it is the first important step, and also making sure that the data is safe. Like it's our responsibility to take care of that data. The next step is business transformation. So this is where your domain expertise comes in. Nobody knows better than you are experts how we can leverage this technology to build something new, to redefine human-machine collaboration and capture value out of that potential. And then basically the cherry on top is to position yourself for innovation. So there will groundbreaking innovations will come, and the groups and the institutions that are owning the problem are in a phenomenal position to go into a leading position here. So basically, what are the right partners that can help me position myself in a way where I have a good setup to start innovations, to build something that as of today we cannot even imagine. We and Aleph Alpha, we have specialized on not only building one of the world's best language models, but also the technology around that. Basically running on different infrastructures. We own and operate Europe's most powerful commercial AI cluster, but also technology to fine-tune and specialize and integrate these models. And because at the current pace, pretty much technology changes every month almost, it seems, one of the key design principles for us is to build our platform future-proof. For us, that means that every training, every fine-tuning, every integration or configuration that our customers are currently applying to our platform is something that gets retained and can always be applied to future generation of models, of open source models, of our own models, and to future generations of our platform, because it's absolutely crucial to now make sure that the work that we are putting into generative AI now will not be lost in the future. One great example there is a solution we built together with the German government that is called F13. It's called F13 because that's kind of the key that is missing on our keyboards. And it currently has about 400,000 users. And it's a solution that is really specialized and is really tailored to the needs of this part of government. And why I like this example so much is because this solution creates multi-page Word documents that are compliant according to highly specific formats and highly specific requirements based on proprietary internal data and added. And what we're added here is something that currently only we can do. We have for every claim, for every factual claim, we can show where are confirming and where are contradicting sources in our data. So not just with a link, but going down into the text and kind of like highlighting the certain words and parts of text that confirm or disagree with. So that's a phenomenal solution, but really we're in all industries, we're now seeing basically customers and partners understanding that the big value potential lies beyond chatbots or copywriting. For everybody that wants to leverage this technology, you have to basically think through all the steps that are needed for that. Infrastructure build and operate. Right? How do you make sure that you got the right partners to build and run your infrastructure? How do you get industry know-how and data? Hopefully you got it yourself, but maybe you also have partners. Who can help you with co-innovation and productization? Who can run integration, data pipelining, and consulting, and who can help you with scaling that up and distributing that to, in our case, 400,000 users. I was in I think 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, I was at Bletchley Park and we talked about the risks of these solutions with pretty much the brightest AI researchers in the world. And Aleph Alpha really has a unique approach here in the sense that we believe, because we are not a B2C company, we are serving world's best enterprises and governments. We believe that it is not on us to decide what a desired, what a required behavior is, but we have put all our engineering focus on building tools for transparency and control. And this is where we are leading the pack. Kind of nobody can offer better tools and better frameworks to tailor the behavior and understand the behavior of these systems to individual requirements. And these are very different. They're very different from, like, we're running a digital citizen assistant for kind of one German city, where it's important that the language is easy, that's always friendly and helpful. But our model is also driving business process modeling inside SAP Signavio, right? And the risks and the configurations for these two use cases are vastly different, right? So this is really what we're focusing on. And this also for us means sovereignty. Sovereignty means that all the partners and customers have all the transparency and all the control they need to take responsibility for the outcomes, because in these critical and complex use cases, basically just hoping that a chatbot will give you the right answer is not enough. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jonas. And you already touched upon some very interesting concepts. So the first one that I would call out, reducing the time that we spend at work by 60 or 70%, if I catch that correctly. That, I think, it's a wish of many people. But then a few concepts that we will unpack further in the panel. So you're talking about control, transparency, and obviously you also mentioned that you have a pretty unique capability in tracing back the contradicting or confirming sources of the results. And so that is for sure very noteworthy, because it's obviously answering a lot of the questions that a lot of governments are actually struggling with. And we will hear we have today 5 member states with us. Maybe before you leave us, I would just have one question. So I understand that the Aleph Alpha LLM model is multilingual by default. And I was curious if you could share with our audience, when you designed the model, why did you decide to do it multilingual? And what is the difference with models that, on the other hand, are actually translating from one language to the other?
That's a great question. And there's several advantages. So what we did is we trained our model with multiple languages from the very beginning. So it kind of grew up multilingual. And this has resulted in the model that has a very good aligned understanding in different languages. So you can mix languages. So if you had like a text that would be mixing languages, or you could ask questions that are answered in French, let's say, based on a text that's only in German, right? And so that's kind of really powerful. It is we've shown that because the model basically achieves this shared representation, we're actually not really losing a lot of capability, right? Because you might think that if you train on 5 languages, our next generation will have 6 languages, that this kind of costs you a lot of performance. But it's actually not really the case, because the models have some sort of world understanding that translates or transists all language representation. So that's quite powerful. But yeah, of course, and for us, it was also incredibly important to capture the cultural knowledge and the cultural identity of these different languages, right? So because if you translate, to your point, Irina, if you basically translate a, let's say, English-speaking model all the time, then the English-speaking model will always have the biases of this language. A great example we've shown in our models is if you ask our model in different languages about sports, then it defaults, if you ask in English, then it defaults to something like football. And if you ask in German or French, it defaults to something like soccer. And that's quite interesting. And that's just a silly example, but cultural knowledge and cultural identity is everywhere.
That's great. And it's very cool that actually your LM model works even when you mix languages. I'm Italian, Slovenian, so I mix the 2 languages all the time. So when a Slovenian LLM will be available, I'll also be very happy to have the ability to mix both languages. All right. Thank you so much, Jonas, for being with us and for providing this very interesting perspective to help our audience to have a real overview of the land and the key topics. Congratulations again on your very successful business, and we wish you a great continuation and more successes to come. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So we will now move to our second keynote speaker, Sorin Keran. Sorin is Fellow Vice President and Global CTO of Data and AI at HPE. And I would like to welcome you, Sorin, on the stage. And thank you so much for being with us today. So we already heard from Jonas some preliminary key pillars that we need to address. And I would welcome to hear from you and your perspective. What are the key challenges? What are the key opportunities?
Hi, Irena, and good morning, everybody. And Irena, as you want to see Slovenian, I've been working with Jonas for many years now, and I would welcome Romanian as well as part of the series of languages. However, covering Italian, I think it's fine as well. So, as I've been working with HP for many years, and as Irena said, I'm currently the global CTO for data and AI, but my other head at HP is to drive innovation as part of the CTO office. And I think until November 22, my job was rather easy because I was covering other areas as well. But from the AI perspective, was smooth, right? And because we've been looking at artificial intelligence for many years, we've been deep diving into computer vision, convolutional neural networks, and we've been working with governments and enterprises on how to integrate those type of use cases into their pipelines and so on. Yes, we are still discussing data strategies and so on and so forth, but it was on a very smooth path. We were adopting and thinking about GPT-3 and other things and so on. But in November 23, with the launch of OpenAI ChatGPT, right, things accelerated because people realized that AI, and especially large language models and generative AI, can quickly accelerate the way they interpret and have access to information. So basically, what happened in November 22 is that then we've seen a series of announcements through the past year that forced everybody from schools to hospitals, to golf courses, to manufacturing, to government, to figure out, how do I put in place a data strategy? How do I think about governance? How do I think about adopting these new technologies? Right. So suddenly my life as keeping up with innovation became really, really complicated. And I've been working with Jonas for many years, and we talk often, and we're both looking at how fast things started to move. But what also happened in November 22 is that we finally realized that AI is powered by high quality data. We knew it, but we realized that without actually having a foundational high quality data, then basically whatever comes out on the other end, no matter if you're summarizing text, if you're looking at predictive maintenance, it doesn't matter which use case, basically whatever you put in, this actually comes out. But being able to have a correct data strategy, you realize quickly that data is the driving force for innovation and growth. Now, at the European level, data economy is set to reach close to about a trillion threshold in 2023, which is an important share of the GDP, right? And even more importantly, the EU, part of the Digital Decade program, basically set an ambitious target of about 75% of the businesses need to embrace either AI, cloud, maybe a bit less big data, but AI, cloud, and big data by 2030. Now, what also happened in November starting with November, was that governments and the European Union and governments and policymakers realized that AI is in the open. And suddenly, due to the mistakes that AI made, due to the data sharing, data leakage that actually happened when we're using these AI models, due to the realization that we don't have regulations in place, everybody is running now to start regulating AI. And you had Senate hearings, you had EU meetings, you have UK meetings, and so on. EU most likely has to finalize its landmark AI Act by the end of 2023, while everybody else is running to do the same. Now, in this complex environment, not only that as a European level, we need to start regulating this, but we also need to be ahead of the game while we introduce regulations and so on and so forth. However, what we see is that we are actually decreasing in the ICT market by about 10 points, right? From 21 maybe to 11-ish, and other regions are actually growing. For example, US share, part of the ICT market, is actually increasing in the same period. for the past 8 years with about the same percentage. So we do need to up our game in how do we enable artificial intelligence across Europe, and we do need to up our game on how do we enable a cohesive data strategy in order to make sure that we are enabling more than what we have today. About 8% of the business are using AI today, so in European Union, so we need to be able to actually increase that at a much faster pace. Now, what Irene said, and also what was also clear from Jonas, is that in order to develop these large AI models, in order to push the boundaries of efficiency and automation and handling, for example, citizen requests, in order to push this to allow schools and hospitals to properly use it, we have a problem. The problem is basically twofold. The first one is the computing power that you need in order to train these models, and the second one is skills, right? So I'm happy that Jonas actually delivered the first part of the keynote, because we need to enable more startups like Aleph Alpha. We need to enable more centers of excellence for people that have the skills to develop those models. While in parallel to that, the models that they develop is as good as the compute they have underneath, right? And I think Irene already mentioned that last week we emphasized how important, as part of the European AI Alliance in Spain, how important is compute to development of AI, but we need to make sure that we enable those startups, we enable the governments, we enable the we enable companies to actually have access to compute power. Right, so the two go hand in hand. I can have compute power, but I can't have the skills. I need the skills, fantastic, I'll get them, but I need to enable them to be able to design models. The models they design are as good as the data, but even more importantly as well, are as good as how much compute power I actually give them. So the fact that as part of the 2024 work program, the European Commission announced the AI Grand Challenge is a very big plus, right? So being able to enable startups to use the resources of Euro HPC-JU is basically a very good step forward. Because otherwise, as Irene mentioned as well, we are actually going to always see a divide between who has access to compute power, who doesn't have access to compute power. Let them call them GPUs, accelerators, or whatever others, compute power. As Jonas mentioned, we've been working closely with Jonas as well, for example, in order to understand, while GPUs are here to stay, NVIDIA's GPUs or AMD GPUs, what are the alternative accelerators, or how do we actually make sure that we stay aligned with that as well? So access to compute power is critical in order to make sure that we stay competitive and we don't create the divide that Irena mentioned between poor and rich players, to poor and rich from the point of view of obviously access to compute. So I think today's conference is going to focus more or less on 3 key points. The first one is AI is set to generate unprecedented scale of efficiency within the public sector. No matter if we are talking about education, healthcare, government, climate change, and so on and so forth. It is going to deliver efficiencies and automation to the various parts of the public sector. The second piece is that I think Irena mentioned as well is, where do I actually get this compute power? How governments and how is the European public sector going to have access to compute power? Simply is going to be either in cloud or on-prem or both, because there are a lot of companies that are actually looking at, companies and governments that are looking at something that we call hybrid. It's either cloud or it's on-prem. And point number 3 is, which policies do we need to put in place to democratize access to this compute? Because unless we have the resources we need, we can't develop AI. I will quickly unpack for the next 3 minutes these 3 topics, and then, because it seems that we are a bit late, and then Irena, I'll be asking, maybe I'll be giving some food for thought questions, and then I'll be passing it quickly over to you. From the integrations in the public sector, I think the most visible one obviously is healthcare, where basically AI has a proven track record of improving citizen health outcomes, either by underpinning drug discovery or enabling better diagnostics through computer vision, or simply streamlining the processes and access to healthcare. Personally, HP and my team has been working jointly with DZNE, for example, and a couple of years back, we've published on the cover of Nature the work that we've done jointly on SOM learning and how do we enable researchers that are part of different organizations across Germany to have access to the same data to write better algorithms. And we've been working since then, we're working jointly on other initiatives as well. Or, for example, we've been helping various hospitals like the St. Catharina Hospitals in Netherlands to use algorithm to proactively detect heart failure and actually deliver more accurate diagnosis. So in healthcare, AI is definitely going to have a very strong impact. Another very good impact, which I think maybe a couple of days back was already in the news, is basically climate change. And governments are basically using AI to tackle climate change in various ways, anything from climate modeling to weather forecasting to prediction tools and so on and so forth. And what I said a couple of days back was that I think DeepMind GraphCast, in a work jointly with ECMWF, announced that GraphCast actually could predict some unseen records better than some of the gold standards that for weather forecasting that the high resolution forecast system, or HRES, that ECMWF actually has. And there's a lot more work to do. It's not across all the various use case, all the various prediction models. It's not across, it's not more than 10 days or whatever, but we already see the sparks of truly the power of artificial intelligence in climate change. In our case, one of our supercomputers that is actually part of your HPC JU hosted in Finland, we've been using that not only, for example, to power 20% of the surrounding city of Kajani while the supercomputer is actually running, but also is one of the European Commission's flagship for it's one of the European Commission computing sources for the flagship project called Destination Earth. So, which basically you're going to hear a bit more, I think, in panel 1 a bit later today. Now, let me go to the second point, which is cloud or on-prem, right? Organizations have actually two choices, and the nature, the cloud nativity nature of AI would say that it needs a lot of resources, and it needs a lot of resources with a certain stack being delivered underneath, that you can actually have it natively in the cloud, or you can actually have it natively now on a supercomputing or on a high-performance cluster somewhere on-prem. You could have both, or you could have one or another. But which one, and what is the strategy in selecting all of those? Well, cloud computing is one of the first answers, and this is what I was saying, AI actually is cloud native because of the stack underneath. But you have some problems with cloud computing in the sense data is stored and processed in the cloud, and because of the various regulations that we have in place in the European Union, that might be a problem because we need data gravity, we need data privacy, we need data security. So if cloud companies can actually ensure that the data stays within the European Union boundaries, that's great. And we've seen a lot of European companies building AI clouds in order to serve Europe. This, in the past 6 months, HP has been working jointly with a lot of cloud companies around European Union to actually build these clouds. However, I'm relentlessly. I'm actually waiting, I apologize, for the upcoming cloud rulebook to actually understand how Europe actually thinks about the cybersecurity certification for cloud services, as we've been working with these local companies, and they're looking forward to understand how they, together with us, will be able to serve Europe. On the other hand, you actually, as I was saying, you have supercomputing for AI, and where governments can actually build supercomputers as part of AI national strategies, for example, and basically serve the national interest within the startups, the companies, the business that are actually within the country and within European Union. However, the high cost of these systems and the supply chain for this system is actually a barrier for entry, because while you can build thousands and thousands of GPUs, they are expensive, and in some case, given the environment we're in today, you might wait for a very long time before you actually have access to them. So one solution would be, for example, for the Euro HPC JU to basically build a federated high-performance computing across Europe to serve AI workloads. However, there is a bit of work to be done between the stack that is in for HPC and the stack that is in for AI, as I was saying. But having an idea on how to do that is actually a step in the right direction. Finally, the last point is that I wanted to cover quickly today is how do we democratize compute capacity, right? We need to make sure that we give access to people, and this is a problem that we definitely, hopefully, will be able to discuss today. How do we give access, as I was saying earlier, to startups? How do we build services? How do we actually have teams that are able to not only to enable access to computers, to supercomputers and to compute capacity, but also support the businesses and the startups in their journey of understanding what they need. From the HP perspective, we understand the importance of routing the AI supply chain in Europe, and this is why some of our biggest clusters and systems have actually been built in our factory in Czech Republic. And in parallel to that, as I was saying, that you need to advise startups and businesses, we actually build various centers of excellence across Europe to be able to support with that journey. We have an AI and data center in Spain, in Las Rozas. Here, where I live in Grenoble, we'll actually build a huge training AI scale system in order to actually help European companies in Europe. We've been developing machine learning talents in Greece, and we have a large center now in Ireland that actually is looking only at generative AI. And all of those under this idea of working with companies like Jonas, working with companies like Aleph Alpha, in order to make sure that we are supporting this data and AI sovereignty of European Union. Now, the last thing here is the importance of partnership, as Jonas said, between public and private sectors. This is where partnership with industry, anything from HP to Aleph Alpha and others, become crucial, and governments can collaborate with trusted private sector partners to build the skills and experience to swiftly deliver AI infrastructures and to make sure that we are democratizing access to compute. Now, as you're actually going to start the next couple of hours into the next panels, the next couple of hours, I'd like to leave you with some questions, which basically I live in Europe, and I'm in the, let's say, in the world stage around AI, and I'm listening. Obviously, I'm aligned with the various startups and companies, and I understand a bit of what is going on. But there are some things that actually keep me up at night. The first one is what is the EU plan to ensure that Europe will have the necessary access to compute power in order to be able to develop these AI models, in order to make sure that we are powering companies like Aleph Alpha and others, we are powering businesses to actually be able to adopt and operationalize AI. And then the other thing is, I've been involved in a lot of discussions around national AI strategy. So do member states actually plan to install their own computing infrastructure to ensure AI data sovereignty, or they want to rely on cloud computing services? And I've been working with member states, and I've heard various theories, and I would be actually curious to understand, how do we come up? Is there a common strategy? Is there a common preference? And how do we actually make sure that we are solving for that as well? Finally, we do have a stopgap, which is basically the Euro HPC-JU. So how will the Euro HPC-JU basically ensure that its supercomputers are AI ready? We've seen what happens in Lumi. We know Lumi very well. How can we make sure that not only we are powering HPC, but AI has slowly become a supercomputing or an HPC use case, so to speak, but it has very different requirements. So we need to make sure that we are making the changes in order to have this huge impact on AI. So I think these are important questions, and I've been discussing them across startups, across enterprises, across people that are working in governments, across member states, and I'm hoping that in the next couple of months we'll be able to at least take the right steps in the right direction. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm a bit over. Irena, back to you.
Thank you so much, Soren, for the excellent overview. And I think you touched upon a number of incredibly important issues. So everyone working in policies around the globe, and a lot of my fellow colleagues, indeed, we witness what you said, the frantic design of AI strategies everywhere. And we're very privileged today to have 5 European member states governments that will actually tell us more about how they're thinking about it and where they are in their journey. The second very important concept that I would like to highlight, as you said, data, garbage in, garbage out. So the critical question of data will be discussed now in the next panel. And on capacity, equally, we're very privileged to have today Gustav Kalbe from the Commission, that is critical figure in the design of Euro HPC-JU. And so we'll definitely address the capacity issue, and also the very exciting recent announcement in the State of the Union of opening up the capacity of the JU to the startups. So thank you so much for providing such an excellent transition. Sorry, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Elena. Have fun.